25% of the U.S. economy flows through Washington, D.C. And again, the waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think for the first time in my lifetime, we're going to see a proper accounting. And as the leading bond salesman for the United States, I got a pretty good story to tell that if we can do this cost cutting, if we can grow the economy, then if President Trump is going to live up to all his promises.
Yes, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Department of the Treasury for President Trump. And what else what would the Democrats like you to know, Michael? What is he? Is he a woman of color? No, not a woman of color, no. He is the highest-ranking gay man in the history of the United States government, however. And President Trump, with the in vitro fertilization order, actually came out night before last. I recall the Democrats going on a tear about how Donald Trump was anti-birth control and he was going to ban or outlaw birth control or something mental like that. Democrat Party's in a perpetual state of mental and intellectual meltdown. They're unwell. Very unwell. And President Trump chose Scott because he's gay? No, I don't think so. I think it had to do with his chops, his skills, his background, his handle on the economy and on finance and things. But never mind that. President Trump is nothing that the Democrat Party says that he is. But he is a character, and he had some moments yesterday, a lot of fun, knocking New York City down because they were charging people $9 per car to come into New York City. And it's punishing it's fine for the rich. The rich don't care. The more money you have, the less that matters to you. $9 toll just to drive into the city. President Trump slapped that down through the Department of Transportation, and the Democrats are very, very angry. And we've got, who is it? Judge Ho. Judge Ho is on the job. And Judge Ho was supposed to decide yesterday, but he didn't decide yesterday. He's going to decide today, apparently. Very big deal with President Trump. Can he or can't he? And interestingly, I like to look up who these judges are. And it turns out that he's naturally a Biden appointee, Judge Ho. No, that's right. That's his name. I'm not mocking him. That's his actual name. Judge Ho, H-O-W. It's Dale Ho. Amazing stuff. Second year as a judge, and a very big deal, deciding whether the governor of New York, who wants to come in and fire the mayor of New York City, Governor Kathy Hochul, who only became governor because the previous Democrat governor, she's a Democrat governor, of course, and the previous Democrat governor, Andrew Cuomo of the Cuomo organized crime family, not as well organized as they ought to be, perhaps, he groped so many women that he was driven out even by the Democrats. Can you believe that? I mean, you'd think if he had an island, they'd want to party on his island. But he groped so many women that even the Democrats had to agree that he had to go. And then he picked Kathy Hochul to replace him because it's a third world country when the left is in charge. And now Kathy Hochul is talking about kicking out the mayor of New York City because he spoke up about the problem with illegal aliens in New York. So the Biden Justice Department charged him with terrible crimes, horrible crimes, like accepting an upgrade on a flight to Turkey from coach to business class. He should probably get 40 or 50 years in prison for that. Don't you? I think if you're mayor of New York, the airline should say, oh, look, we've got the mayor of New York. He's flying coach. Let's upgrade him to business class because that'd be good. But no, the Democrats want to put you in a penitentiary. They're going to have to build gulags, a gulag archipelago somewhere in the Continental Divide. It'll be out there, people breaking rocks because the Democrats want to put all their political enemies in prison because they're not liberals. They're the left. Very, very different proposition. So we got that. Now, we're standing by, and it may or may not happen while we're on the air today. Dale Ho, Judge Dale Ho, Biden appointee, and he may decide the future of the mayor of New York City and whether the governor of New York can just kick out the mayor of New York City and then put in, you know who they want to put in? Andrew Cuomo, Gropey McGropeface, because Ungla Bungla, it's a third world country. The left is here. Aren't they amazing? So that's something that we've got our ear to the ground on there. In the meantime, the savages of Hamas, they say, and the news media is saying they've released 4 hostages. No, they've released the bodies, the dead bodies of 4 hostages, including 2 little toddlers and their mother, who they kidnapped and tortured and, want to know the rest, and then murdered the 2 little babies and their mother. And then an older man. They released the dead bodies of the people they murdered. And the news media is acting like they've done something real good, because our news media, keep in mind, is the most corrupt institution in the United States of America. Aren't they amazing? We have a great many stories to share with you today, not just Judge Ho. And you know what? It says, "You ain't nothing but a Judge Ho." That's what it says on his door, his office door. Kind of a weird sign to have on your door, don't you think? But there's other news, too. NBC fake news in Washington. Trump says federal government should take over D.C., backing congressional GOP push. Now, I've been arguing for years now that should be the case, that the Congress should take over the District of Columbia, which they have the power and the authority to do. Constitutionally, they got to save the Constitution. It would be unconstitutional not to. And we've got the mayor of Washington, D.C., who's the unconstitutional mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser. Bow, wow, wow. And she's all spun up about it. But I've been arguing for years now that the Congress, and I've been as a resident, a longtime resident of Washington, D.C., I said, listen, even Congress couldn't do worse than the Democrats that are in charge of D.C. now. We've got the D.C. City Council member. He was actually ejected he was kicked out of the D.C. City Council for bribery and accepting money from crooked contractors. And he's the guy who said that the Rothschild family makes it snow in Washington because they're Jews and they want to take over everything.
Man, it just started snowing out of nowhere this morning, man. Y'all better pay attention to this climate control, man.
Right.
It's climate manipulation.
Sure.
And D.C. keep talking about we're a resilient city. And that's a model based off the Rothschilds controlling the climate.
Damn Jews.
To create natural disasters, they can pay for it and own the cities, man. Be careful.
That's right. They can pay for it. The Jews can pay for the snow. They make it snow. Then they pay for it. Then they take over the city. That makes sense to a Democrat city councilman in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., pride of the planet Earth. And that's the Democrats. Then they thought that was embarrassing, so they brought him to the Holocaust Museum, and he wandered off. They wanted to show him. They wanted to give him a tour of the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And halfway through the tour, the people touring him around turned around and said, "Hey, where did Trayon White go?" And it turned out he had ditched. He was gone. He left because, Jews, he was afraid it might start snowing in there or something, and he had to leave. Lickety-split. Now, Trump says federal government should take over D.C., backing congressional GOP push. And I don't want to say I started this, but certainly I've been talking about this for a long time. Even the Congress this is how bad they are. Even the Congress of the United States could not do a worse job running Washington, D.C. than the current crop of Democrats that have been in charge for so long, going back to Marion Barry. I miss Marion Barry. I'd rather have Marion Barry than Muriel Bowser. He was funnier, at least. And, there was the cocaine and the hookers and the girls and the car getting hit by a train in the middle of the night. Night Train Barry. He was known as Night Train Barry after that limousine hit by a train. He was more fun. And the GDB set him up. Rashida Moore. I remember that. Yeah, I miss Marion Barry. She did, by the way. But that's not important now. So, says the federal government should take over D.C., and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago because a Republican member of Congress introduced legislation suggesting the very same thing. And I endorse all of this wholeheartedly as a taxpayer without representation living in Washington, D.C. I do that by choice because this is America. I can choose to move to Virginia, but not to Maryland if I would like. Now, President Donald Trump on Wednesday threw his support behind a congressional effort, you see, for a federal takeover of the nation's capital, saying he approves putting the District of Columbia back under the direct control of the federal government. Sounds like, honestly, this is how bad things are. Even the federal government couldn't do worse than the local Democrats. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, that's a big airplane built by the patriarchy. It's a 747. She's a beauty, let me tell you. Trump complained about crime, of which there is a great deal, homelessness, of which there is way too much, in the district, saying, I think we should take over Washington, D.C., make it safe. I think that we should govern the District of Columbia. And I agree with Donald Trump as a resident, and that's great. And he's talked about cleaning up Washington, D.C., the homelessness. Now, if you look at the $177 billion that we sent to Ukraine because the communists, Vlad the Impaler Putin, attacked them with tanks. You know, he attacked Ukraine during the Obama administration, too, and took over Crimea River. Bada boom. And the Democrats are apparently perceived as being weak by all the tough guys of the world, the tyrants of the world. And as I've been saying for many, many years now, only the tyrants of the world need fear the wrath of the United States of America. But if the tyrants of the world do not fear the wrath of the United States of America, then the tyrants of the world have nothing to fear. And the proof is in the pudding. It's in the pudding. And, Joe Biden likes pudding. It's what he has for every meal. It's kind of weird. And we don't want to talk about what he does with it when nobody's looking. But that's another story. Remarkable things going on all over the place. And I've got to say, I do like the idea of a federal takeover of the district. And if Marion Barry were still alive, I'd want him to become the titular mayor once again. So President Trump talking about the federal government taking over. President Trump's talking about the crime and addressing the crime in Washington, D.C. They've got a Soros radical lefty terrorist of a prosecutor who doesn't prosecute criminals. He tries to prosecute law-abiding citizens, normal people, while murderers and, pimps and thieves run free and good men die like dogs, to paraphrase a great writer. But never mind that. The president's talking about cleaning up the crime problem, cleaning up the homeless problem, and cleaning up the graffiti, because nothing says ghetto like a lot of graffiti. You can be driving along on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and if you turn a corner and this whole city block is graffitied, tagged from ankle to eyeballs, you see, oh, look, we've just entered the ghetto, because graffiti is totally ghetto when it's everywhere. And there's a lot of that going on in Washington, D.C., and the homelessness. And again, just imagine, if you will, if Joe, the brain-dead Biden, had taken $177 billion and done something for homelessness in America instead of for Ukraine, which, honestly, I do believe, and President Trump has said it many times, Putin would not have attacked if President Trump had been in the White House instead of Joe Biden, because the tyrants recognize weakness, the weak sister, and that was Joe Biden, and that was, before that, mentored by a communist named Frank Marshall Davis, was Barack Obama, chose a communist voter to be the CIA director. And, the Putin looked at Obama and said, I can do whatever I want. I can roll over this guy. They gave him the Nobel Peace Prize for showing up and having lunch. And then he attacked more countries than any president since World War II, using the U.S. military. The Democrats, no, what's the matter with them? What's the matter, you? You got no respect. So, great stuff. Trump said that he liked D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser personally, but complained about the city's governance. And he was right about everything he said. They're not doing the job, he said. Too much crime. Too much. Too many tents on the lawns. He's right again. These magnificent lawns. He's 100% right. It's time to clean up the federal city, the United States of America, for crying out loud. We're not Bulgaria. No insult to Bulgaria. Wah, wah, wah. These people. So we got that. Now, President Trump is also a little bit of a dust-up with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, who still doesn't own a suit. He don't have no suit. He ain't got no tie. We've got to $177 billion. Buy a tie. Keep showing up dressed like a teenager going to a Friday night football game. for the love of. And how's that war going? Going real well? How's that long? How long? And maybe you should have elections. President Trump, oh no, did he call him a dictator or did he not? What's a dictator? Is that a person that stays in power after his term expires and doesn't have elections? What does that mean? Because that's Volodymyr Zelensky, just by the way, among other things. President Trump says he's going to go check out Fort Knox, see if we still have any gold there, like we did in the movie Goldfinger, with James Bond. Going to go do that. That's good. I've got Doge updates for you. Amazing stuff. Got an NFL punter. I've got Governor Pritzker in Illinois for you today. Oh, and a hilarious fact check by the fake news media of President Trump on the matter of genitalia. That's coming up, too. We are at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. There's some snow now in Arlington, Virginia. My friend Brian over there is blaming the Rothschilds. When will the Rothschilds stop this behavior? Trying to take over Arlington now. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Bob, calling from Waldorf, Maryland. Oh, Bob, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you for taking my call. I woke up this morning and I had a damn good idea. Knowing you're a man of a lot of connections in D.C., I was wondering if you might be able to run this by somebody and get it to the president. Mm-hmm. If you used to change the name of the FBI building to the Donald J. Trump building, we would increase our odds of a mass immolation and heat this place up finally once and for all. The second thing I wanted to ask you is your thoughts on the subject of there's a law out there that a president can only serve 2 consecutive terms. Well, if I'm correct, that means President Trump can run again in 2028.
Because his 2 terms are non-consecutive, so he'd have to be reelected at the end of these 4 years to serve 2 consecutive terms, is what you're saying.
Am I wrong? I mean, what do you say? Every day is an IQ test in English, and words matter.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, would they not lose it? I mean, they would blow. If he would. Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of changing the J. Edgar Hoover building, cross-dressing.
Yeah. You can save the J and save a few bucks, and just move the Donald to the other side of that J. Edgar, and you can save a couple dollars there. Doge would like that. I mean, I'm telling you,
very
it's a great
thrifty
idea.
Very thrifty thinking. So rename when Kash Patel becomes FBI director, rename the J. Edgar Hoover FBI building the Donald J. Trump FBI building, and Democrats would begin self-immolating. That governor of New York, where do we find such men? Yeah, what's the difference? They don't know the difference. So we shouldn't care too much about that. I know he's a she. It's one of the issues they have. Now, let's get back to President Trump taking over Washington, D.C., right? Because I think it's time for the federal government to take over Washington, D.C. How many carjackings do we have? Like 950 carjackings last year by Democrats, every single one of them perpetrated by a Democrat, which is worthy of note, I think. Remarkable stuff, because the problem is not our guns, it's your sons. Your sons. Sons of what? We don't want to get into all the unpleasantries associated with that. But President Trump on Air Force One, because he's president of the United States, and Hillary Clinton is not, and Kamala Harris is not, because the Democrat voters won't show up to vote for a woman, will they? No, they won't. But for a crusty old white guy dragging his beach chair along the sand in Delaware, him they'll show in record numbers. Boy, never seen so many Democrats show up to vote. They voted twice. They voted all over the place, those Democrats. But here's President Trump on Air Force One A beautiful Boeing 747 with a lovely paint job, created apparently in large part by Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis.
I think that we should govern District of Columbia. It's so important, the D.C. situation. I think that we should run it strong, run it with law and order, make it absolutely flawlessly beautiful. And I think we should take over Washington, D.C., make it safe. People are getting killed. People are being hurt.
Well, that's true enough. That's it. Only if you follow the news. And really, the news doesn't follow the news. One of the problems we have is that the news doesn't follow the news. But what do we have? We're about 61 square miles, Washington, D.C. If you count the river, the water of the river, about 66 square miles, the District of Columbia. And we had more than 950 carjackings, right? That's a lot of carjackings. We are 700,000 people, maybe slightly fewer than 700,000 people, and 950 carjackings in 1 year. Yeah? What is this, Pretoria? Honestly, President Trump and Air Force One, time to take over the district. How come?
We should govern D.C. I think the federal government should take over the governance of D.C. and run it really, really properly. And I like the mayor. I get along great with the mayor. But they're not doing the job. Too much crime, too many tents on the lawn. It's a sad thing, homeless people all over the place, and we got to take care of the homeless. But you can't have that in Washington, D.C.
If we had a news media, I wonder what they would do with their time. I would like to see an analysis of what could have been done with the $177 billion that we've ponied up for Ukraine. And the Democrats didn't have anybody at the table negotiating for peace. They just wanted to fund the military-industrial complex, keep the war going. They don't care about human life. Hundreds of thousands can die, and the Democrat Party turns a blind eye to it. And then, if they should get a glance, they turned another blind eye to it because they don't care. They're the left. They're not liberals. Liberals care about human life. The left, no one has extinguished human life the way the left has extinguished human life over the last 100 years. And they just don't care about human life. That's why you can have 1 million abortions a year, and they applaud and give you a little statuette with Margaret Sanger's name on it. Devout racist. And that's okay because they're Democrats. In fact, Hillary Clinton, since I just mentioned her, received the Margaret Sanger Award. And so did Hanoi Jane Fonda, who is, of course, a communist, like Bernie Sanders and so many others. But President Trump talking about taking over the District of Columbia, because I think that'd be fun, and restore order to the place. Why don't we? I think that'd be a good idea. Now, I should say that carjackings are down in the District of Columbia, but they're still far too common. And so are so many of the Democrats that live here. See, I said they're common. See, that got kind of like that rapper. They got a rapper named Common. He's never mind him. Remarkable stuff. He's no, what's his name? Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar's last name is Duckworth. His name is Kendrick Lamar is his first name and his middle name. And Kendrick Lamar, who was given the Pulitzer Prize for using the N-word and the B-word over and over again. Kendrick Lamar was given the Pulitzer Prize, which is not given for music. It's given for journalism and writing. But Kendrick Lamar was given the Pulitzer Prize? Not the Nobel Peace Prize, just the Pulitzer Prize for his lyrical music.
I'm willing to die for this. I take your life for this. We ain't going back to broke, family selling dope. That's why you nanny ass rap better know. If I gotta slap a I'ma make it look sexy.
Gonna make it look sexy. Give me an N-word here. Give me a B-word. Give me come on there. That's the Pulitzer Prize winning music. And again, Pulitzer Prize not given for music. They gave that the Pulitzer Prize because liberals have a lot of mental issues, a great many mental issues, and the Pulitzer Committee is run by people that self-describe as liberals. I'm guessing they're probably anti-Semites, too, because they're, Democrats. And that's where Democrats are. Did you see the violence against the Jews in New York, and then the Jewish family attacked in Los Angeles and Brentwood in their home by a violent mob of Democrats? And they're okay with that. Don't mind that. Wah, wah, wah. So, yeah, what do we have this story out of D.C. from January of last year, January of 2024. Carjackings in D.C. doubled to a staggering 959 in 2023. Again, a population of just under 700,000 people, about 61 square miles of land, plus a little bit of water in the river. We try not to drive into the river, but when you carjack somebody, you might decide to, because you want to see if the car swims. Could be a Schwimmenwagen. Schwimmenwagen. You know, the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, they had the Volkswagen. That's the wagon for Volks. That's Volks, the people's car, Volkswagen. And they had the Kubelwagen. That's kind of like the Volkswagen thing, and that's for, commanders and wearing uniforms with epaulettes. And then they had the Schwimmenwagen. And the Schwimmenwagen might be my favorite one because it was amphibious. The amphibia, and it was made by Volkswagen. And it's called the Schwimmenwagen. And the Schwimmenwagen, you could drive right into the water. And it would go schwimmen with you. Because, rup. Yeah, so President Trump, in any event, talking about taking the District of Columbia away from the Democrats because of all the murders and the carjackings and the crimes and the homelessness and the graffiti. And the mayor's like, what? Well, this is normal. This is what we want. This is good stuff. We want everybody getting shot at restaurants on 14th Street, and let's and we don't want anybody to come back to work. Government employees, they should all stay home for the rest of their lives, according to Democrats. The Democrats are not well. They're not well. That's a good stuff. So President Trump and Air Force One, we should take the District of Columbia away from the District of Columbia government and give it to the Congress, the federal government. And I actually agree, because even the federal government couldn't do a worse job than this gang of miscreants. The Rothschilds make it snow. And now Trayon White, in fairness to the D.C. City Council, was removed because of the charges by the FBI raid, the bribery and all that. He was staying in how much was his apartment? $4,500 a month. I think it was $4,500 a month. A rental apartment. He doesn't want to invest in real estate. It's not his money. He's just taking bribes. And he's okay. But he has been removed from the city council. Now he's going to run again very soon, and he's going to win in a landslide, I predict. I'd vote for him. I'll tell you that much. That's why I've always voted for Marion Barry every time I had the chance, because he set back statehood by years every time he was reelected. And he was funny. I mean, he was funny. And I met Marion Barry a couple of times, and he was a likable guy. He was a fun guy. Criminal, crackhead. And, who smoked crack with him, Michael? Anybody we know smoked crack with Marion Barry? I believe that it was Hunter Biden who bragged about smoking crack with Marion Barry at a place in Georgetown while Hunter Biden was, I ain't no senator's son. Well, Hunter Biden used to sing that song and then burst out laughing with irony.
Marion Barry, you know what? I actually smoked crack with Marion Barry. I swear to God.
Jesus.
I was in Georgetown, and he used to go to a place right next to the guards, and I was a sophomore, I guess. There was a junior when that happened, but he used to come there and drink, like, late. And I would be in there, and he'd go to the bathroom. But anyway.
Then he'd go to the bathroom. Well, she'd drink. Then he'd go, well, that's natural. You drink, and it's late at night. You might have to go to the bathroom. He was like a 70-something-year-old man. You got to smoke crack when the opportunity presents itself. That's Hunter Biden bragging about actual audio, bragging about smoking crack with then Democrat D.C. Mayor Marion Barry, who eventually did go to prison for smoking that FBI crack that Rashida Moore gave him in a hotel room in Washington, D.C. that had been wired for sound. See what I'm talking about? Also, fun story out of the United Kingdom, the Daily Mail, with a great headline. The smelliest member of Congress is unmasked. Quote, The dude just stinks. The dude just stinks. Now, I know when you hear that, your imagination starts running wild. There are so many candidates that you just have to, and it says the dude, so that kind of gives it away. That suggests right away that it's a man and not a woman. But with Democrats, you never know because they are a little weird when it comes to this stuff. The smelliest member of Congress has been revealed by a former lawmaker. This is kind of funny who it is, too. The former New York Republican Representative George Santos. He was driven out of Congress for being a freak show himself. Says another New Yorker has the worst body odor on Capitol Hill. Speaking to comedian Jim Norton on his podcast, which is called Jim Norton Can't Save You, Santos, the former congressman, was asked who had the worst breath out of all of the lawmakers in Congress. And stunned by the question, the former member of the House of Representatives laughed and immediately sought to regain his composure and deliver a verdict on who needs the most needs a breath mint. And Santos, who's still 36 years old, he represented a portion of New York's Long Island for a while. He's a Republican from 2023, January of 2023 until December of 2023. That's not a very long career in Congress, I've got to say. Before he was expelled by his own colleagues, Haktui, I expel you. And it turns out, he says, everybody knows it. Everybody knows that Jerry Nadler, Congressman Jerry Nadler, is the smelliest member of Congress.
Who has the worst breath in Congress?
Okay, so I can say this
Sure.
with no mental reservation.
Sure.
The worst body odor in Congress is definitely Jerry Nadler.
Really?
It's so bad.
Really? That's
It's
not
so
surprising.
bad. Dude,
Jerry Nadler stinks.
Dude, he stinks, and when he and Jerry Nadler would waddle down that aisle and crop dust it, like it was every step of his waddle was a fart. But dude, the dude just stinks.
Well, yeah, his eating habits are funny. I used to go do a lot of Fox News a long time ago, do the Megyn Kelly show and other shows on Fox News, and I was in there one day, and they had invited Jerry Nadler to come in and be on set on one of the shows, and the guest booking people went to find Jerry Nadler in the green room where he'd be standing by beforehand, and he had vanished. And one of his staffers was there, and the guest booker said, well, what happened to the congressman? So he just rushed downstairs to go to Roy Rogers. He just had to go down on the first floor. There was a Roy Rogers, and he rushed down there because he had just a couple of minutes. And he said, I think I can shovel some burgers in my pie hole between now and then. So Jerry Nadler, what did President Trump called him Waddler too, right? And he's been known as Waddler for a long time. I used to go, Jerry Nadler used to have a New York hot dog party on the rooftop of a union building in Washington every year. I went there several years, and they brought down barrels of New York water to boil the hot dogs in, because it's not the same if your hot dogs aren't in, the Sabrettes aren't in New York water. It would be fair to say that he likes food. He definitely likes food. And he's crop dusting the hallway every step he walks. Jerry Nadler, the smelliest member of Congress. This comes as a surprise to no one. Absolutely no one. You ever shaken his hand? You shake his hand and he toots. It's like, what? What was that? You just do that? He's like, what?
Jerry Nadler would waddle down that aisle and crop dust it. like it was every step of his waddle was a fart.
Next week, the penguin waddles again.
All right, I've got President Trump coming up and Elon Musk coming up, and our ridiculous news media, they become even more ridiculous with each rotation of the earth. And I love this fact check. I grabbed my favorite fact check of the day. God, they're frauds. Fake checkers. I will fact check the fact checkers coming up. Now, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Gene, calling from Youngstown, Ohio. Gino, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Thank you. And I felt lucky today that I'd get through to you, so great. Hey, I heard you talk about Zelensky and not wearing a tie. I just thought I might have a tie that I'd like to donate to him. Back in the 80s, when I lived in the D.C. area, I had to wear a tie to work. And I didn't really like ties, so I started getting into novelty ties. So I bought all the Beatles ties. You remember those?
Yeah, I have some recollection of Beatles ties being around, yeah.
Right. Well, there was one, I think I have one that's a Beatles song called Back in the USSR. Wouldn't that be a good one for me to donate to Zelensky?
I think that would be perfectly appropriate for Zelensky. He was born in the USSR, after all, wasn't
he? Yeah, Back in the USSR. That's a good song, too. I like that song, even though, at the time, I don't know where their heads were at with that one, but, they could have been anywhere based on that. Hey, I got another thing. I'm really becoming a fan of Elon Musk, okay?
Uh-huh.
So I did something, and I hope it goes through, but there's a board that might not like it in Ohio. I don't know. I got turned down on another personalized license plate. I'm kind of into those, too. Musket, Muskit.
The musket. That has to be incorporated somewhere.
Right. And I have it on a plate for the pro-life people. It's called Choose Life. So I thought that'd be good. He's got 13 kids, right? So I think he definitely chooses life, right?
That appears to be the case. Yeah, the 13th we just found out about the other day. A conservative influencer woman.
Right. Well, if we could just get him to, maybe settle down with one woman, that'd be a kind of a conservative thing, but whatever.
He's got $394 billion. Well, I don't want to
he can do what he wants.
Undervalue. 394.2 billion. The point two is $200 million.
Right. Can I tell you about one more thing before we go that I heard today kind of disturbed me, but then I started to think about it. Kash Patel, now I did listen to his book, but maybe I didn't recall. He doesn't like Elon Musk. Is he on? I know Kash Patel had some kind of enemies list. Is Elon Musk on his list?
Well, the enemies list is something conjured up by the left-wing news media, of course, because they still love the idea. It's part of their demonization of everyone that's not a commie. I'm familiar with the Democrats' enemies list because I can name all the people they threw in prison for doing things that Hunter Biden did, but to a much lesser extent.